Yeah, Cat seems dressed appropriately today.
Yeah, no, sorry, that I cannot tell a lie. That is the reason for the biggest reason for my delay. Part of it was my phone was being a pill.
Okay.
But I'm like, no, I'm dressing in theme. And they're not quite as big as Peggy's, but still appropriate, I think.
Well, maybe you can start a fire with them anyway. It's mine too.
Yeah. I feel like I think we could try. It's a small focal point, but be more focused.
I'm Dan Carlson, 1/4.
I'm John Cato, another fourth of us three blokes. And I have two very, very happy, angry orchards. I've got a hard cider unfiltered, and I've got a rosé.
Oh, cool. I'm just drinking a bud.
Hi, I'm Dave Nesbitt, another fourth of us three blokes, and I am currently rocking a Bell's Amber Ale.
John, what did I tell you about putting people in the background of you? It's too distracting. You got to have some kind of other image. It may be apropos, but it's distracting and difficult to edit with. You've got to give me like background.
Work with me here.
Why don't you just have a bunch of pictures of yourself behind you, you know?
Don't tempt him. You know how this works.
I have the conch right now, and I think that you need a very basic.
You don't like this one?
No.
There we go.
That's what I want to see. Something bland.
Okay, only when you live in Wisconsin is the Aurora Borealis bland.
Yes.
I mean, that's just the way it works.
Yes.
Jeez.
So I have the conch.
Oh, now he's gonna be all bitchy about that now.
No, I'll give you. Yes, I'm giving John the conch now. He can speak.
Okay. Okay. I think we should reintroduce ourselves because we didn't all introduce.
Yeah.
And
I totally missed the cue on that. I'm so sorry. I also didn't realize at first that you had already started recording.
Dan interrupted Dave's intro to scold me.
I just wanted to use that stupid line. I have the conch.
I know, it's okay. All right, go ahead, Dan.
I'm sure it'll get used.
Yeah. I'm Dan Carlson, 1/4 of us three blokes.
I'm John Cato. I'm another fourth of us three blokes. And I've got cider.
Look, John and I both attended the University of Wisconsin at Parkside. Therefore, having 4 members of us three blokes is perfect mathematics from that area.
Yes.
But I am Dave Nesbitt, another fourth of us three blokes. And I just finished up my Bell's Amber Ale. So now I'm having a Hofbrau Dunkel. And I'm currently trying out a new headset. So this seems to be working out fairly well.
I think you choose some of those beers just so you can say their names.
Yeah. I've actually got, because of the fact that I'm a member of a band called the Lucifer Project, I just bought a 6-pack of a sweet stout called Fallen Angel.
Hi there, I'm the Mad Hat Cat, and I am apparently 1/4 of us three blokes. I didn't make you all are going to get tired of this math, and I'm going to get a boulder pushed on top of me. I can just feel it.
Well, we have this tendency to always add an extra member after we change the name of our group.
Yeah, because they were 2 kept men, and then I was a third of 2 kept men for the longest time.
Yeah. So, pretty soon there'll be 5 of us, and we'll be the 4 blokos or something.
We have to think of a new name first for 4.
I don't know.
I mean, us four blokes works as well.
Yeah, but we have to. I think we should come up with a name that doesn't have the number of us, so that we don't have to change the title every time we bring someone on.
Yeah.
A bunch of blokes.
Is there a name for some sort of polygon that has like a Schrodinger's cat amount of numbers edges to it?
Hang on, let me talk to my people in the physics department.
A pie of blokes.
YouTube's like, could you fuckers just settle on one name for your channel? Jesus.
All right. So this week's movie, Lord of the Flies, 1963 version, based on the novel by the same name by William Golding. It's about a group of schoolboys who have crash landed just off of an island in the Pacific Northwest. We are, through some panning over some still photographs, given the impression that it's wartime. No specific war is mentioned. It has kind of a World War II vibe to it. There does seem to be some indication that nuclear weapons may be in use. The novel was written about a decade earlier. So our protagonist, what's that now?
In 53, yeah.
In 53,
50, 53 or 54, yeah.
Yeah. We begin with one, well, I guess kind of two characters, and they become kind of our main protagonists through which we see most of the action, and who I think we're meant to empathize with the most. And one of them has a real name, Ralph. And the other one, we never learn his real name. He just informs his new friend Ralph that as they have met each other after wandering through the jungle on this island, as long as you don't call me what they used to call me at school. What did they call you? Piggy.
Which probably wasn't the best choice. He could have just never brought it up.
Yeah, no, don't think about this thing. Shit,
Yeah.
no, that's all I can think about.
No, I don't want any of you to refer to me as the synthful dwarf.
No comment. No comment.
Oh, yeah.
I play synth.
So after Ralph and Piggy have kind of acquainted themselves with each other, and they have a few, they seem relatively calm. Like, yes, we're stranded on an island, but, my daddy's in the Navy, says Ralph. And, one of these days he'll have shore leave and he'll come and rescue us. So very, very much we're in childlike optimism mode where, well, things seem bad, but the grown-ups will make it okay. And as they are kind of wandering around and maybe just having a moment of boyish excitement at being on an island, because I'm sure at least some of them had read Treasure Island and other piratey type books. Swimming around in the ocean, walking along the beach, they find one of the big motifs of the novel and the movie, the conch.
Yes.
A giant shell that Piggy says, I once saw somebody, I can't remember who he's referring to, like a group of natives or something, blow through it like a trumpet, and you can make a big sound with it. And so Ralph tries it, doesn't quite get it, but then does, clears a bell. So with the use of this conch, we now have the ability to call out over great distances so that they can try and find, because surely there are other people around. There were a ton of boys on the plane that crashed. And slowly they start coming out of the jungle, coming down from along the beach, and mostly they're younger boys. And I don't know if Piggy was just dreaming of being a teacher someday or some sort of administrative position, but he immediately starts taking roll and learning everyone's name so that we can know who all is here. And kind of one by one, they all say their names. One boy in particular, he's what they will refer to throughout the movie as the Litlins, basically the boys who are, let's say, under 9. And not only does he give his name, his full, incredibly British name,
address, phone number,
but his address, his phone number, and rattling it off as though he, just like his mommy taught him, should you ever get lost in the crowd, go and find a policeman, and here's what you tell him.
And I'd like to add something.
Yeah.
One of the groups of boys that comes down and meets them is this choir group, and they're all
they come next
and making their way down and singing this Kyrie song,
which translates to Lord have mercy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and it didn't have to be that much mercy because not one of those kids had a scratch on them from this plane crash.
Yeah, right. They're like a little mussed in places, but especially the boys in their choir robes with like the tall ruff, the perfectly shaped, very distinct choir boy hat. First of all, it's gotta be hot there. What are you all still doing in your choir robes? You have uniforms on underneath there. You're, not over 15, so you're still in short pants.
But at the same time, that's so very, very British, though. So
So
how would the children look if they had just come out of a plane crash? Well, obviously their hair would be mussed. We can't think of anything else that they might have gotten a scratch or some real damage. So
Well, this is 1963 though as well. They're not going to have like gashes and wounds in the children.
You figure they would have at least put a couple of bruises on the kids. I'm just saying,
And none of them were terrified. They were all like, "This is cool.
Hey, look, no adults."
Well, it starts out with this kind of tone of being like a boys' adventure kind of thing. There's no grown-ups around. Like, we'll start a fire, we'll go hunting, we'll all this kind of stuff, and it doesn't stay that way for very long.
Yes, after the choir group comes along down the beach and joins up with what I've been in my head referring to as the base camp. Because that's who we're following through most of the movie is Ralph, Piggy, the Litlands, and the few boys who are in kind of that original base camp. So I've been calling the base camp and the choir. The choir eventually appoints that head boy Jack. Of course, his name's Jack. Head boy, and the head of the choir declares himself the hunter, and his choir members are hunters with him. And so now we immediately have kind of a separation of groups. We have the people in the base camp and the hunters. They've claimed the cool title.
Yeah.
So
that's one
get used to it. Get used to it.
The peaceful group and the
ranger.
Yeah.
Well, and of course, throughout the movie, all of them have their moments of, British civility. But then also like, no grown-ups, yay! Immediately Ralph, and Jack kind of jumps in on this as well. Like, well, look, we might be here for a little while. We're going to need some rules so that, we all stay safe and everything is kept fair and orderly. Agreed? Of course.
Because we're British.
Of course.
Damn right. There must be order in all things.
A few times in the movie, like, what are we, savages? No, we're English, and the English do it best.
I play Sim.
Ask the Irish.
I was watching
proper British.
Yeah,
I was watching "When the Wind Blows," which is this cartoon that Roger Waters did the score for.
Oh yeah.
This couple was faced with nuclear annihilation, and they were just the whole movie is just them tied up with all this polite British stuff about, we better build a shelter, like they're not at all panicking.
Yes, it seems proper.
Yeah, they have to hold this kind of politeness up in the air no matter what happens to them, so that's what I was thinking of when I saw some of this. What do you like, especially with Piggy, he wants to hold on to that politeness as much as possible.
Oh yes, very, very much so. So through after a little bit of butting heads, Ralph and Jack are constantly butting heads in this movie. Piggy insists, Ralph found the conch and he's the one who called us to assembly. He should be chief. And they immediately say, well, let's have a vote. And they do, in fact, have a vote, very democratic. And Ralph is declared chief, although Jack, had some support, of course, with his choir boys and one or two of those in the base camp. So Ralph is now chief. All right, we've got to build shelter. We need to start a signal fire so that the smoke can be seen from far away. My partner and I were a little bit at odds, like, well, do you start the fire and then just make sure that it's constantly going and you always have someone at watch? But wouldn't you run out of fuel? It's an island. I mean, a lot of the stuff is green. You're not going to be able to find a whole lot of burnable stuff. But, if you have to wait to start the fire until you see signs of a plane or a ship out in the distance, it takes a minute to start it. Will it be fast enough? So it's a little bit of a tricky position.
That's why that the fight over the fire kind of made me feel kind of because you can't keep the fire going 24 hours a day. Of course the plane comes when the fire's not on. I just that whole thing. I don't know, that whole thing of what are you going to do with this? You have to find some other way to summon help besides a fire. I mean, that might be helpful if you see a lot of traffic overhead, but if you're going to see a plane every 3 months, okay.
I'm sure one of them read it in a book somewhere. Like, yes, when you're marooned on an island, you start a signal fire.
Right.
And they're all still, again, like that relatively calm and optimistic for their situation, and kind of bouncing back and forth between we must be civilized about this, and again, Kermit Flail, no grown-ups. Well, and actually, when Jack first arrives, like with the group of the choir boys, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison.
I had no idea.
Where is the man? The man who blew the conch. Where is he? There isn't a man here. My God. And he's kind of just in disbelief that there are no grown-ups around. And it takes him a minute to actually believe that could be true.
Yeah.
So after they've got their shelters and their signal fire, kind of going, they're still working out the specifics of that. There is something specific, by the way, how the fire gets started. I don't know that I necessarily want to include it in the synopsis. So just edit this out.
I will. Spoilers. we spoil everything. There's a bullying situation where Piggy's glasses are broken. They use the glasses to start the fire.
And that hasn't even happened yet. They don't even think to ask Piggy for his specs. Like, this really annoys me. They just kind of snatch them off his face. Like, he's right there. Just ask him. Piggy specs, of course, we can start a fire with that. And just rip it off his face.
As someone who wears glasses, I considered that the scariest scene in the movie when the kid didn't have his glasses.
Yeah.
So, clearly Piggy is, from the very start, like, everybody is laying into him, especially Jack, constantly calling him fatty and making fun of his glasses, making fun of his size and shape. And Ralph, I know he's kind of supposed to be like our good, identifying with protagonist. But Ralph is kind of a dick to Piggy.
Yeah, he is.
Yes, so much.
Like, he's not like directly mean to him, but like when they take his glasses away, he's kind of just like, don't worry, we'll give them back.
He was told not to call them. He was told by Piggy, I'm calling him that because I don't know his name, not to call him Piggy, and he's the reason why everybody calls him Piggy, because that's what he calls him.
His name is not Fatty, it's Piggy.
Piggy is by far the calmest of the whole bunch.
Yeah.
Everything he says with purpose. And he thinks about his choice of words very carefully.
Although I'd say that he's the coolest character. I mean, he's the most rational, cool as in rational character in the show.
Yeah.
But
if we're just sitting around talking about the characters as various elements, I mean, he's kind of the super ego of the entire group. His entire notion is to be the intellectual element, the representation of the part of you that sits around and goes, all right, let's think this entire process through. And of course, you're dealing with a group of kids entering their teens. So of course, when you're entering into your teens, well, you're nothing but id. You are a whole bunch of desires and drives, and they're oftentimes damaging.
But the movie kind of is about trying to rein that in a little bit, at least, or trying to rein it in, and that's what Piggy's at least trying to do, and so is Ralph.
Yeah,
and that's the main thrust of the thing is can Ralph and Piggy keep the rest of the group from just devolving into complete insanity and doing whatever?
And the answer is no.
No.
Unfortunately not.
That's the other big symbol in the entire thing is the pig's head that becomes the Lord of the Flies that also
Mhm.
begins to represent over time the dissolution of sanity within the
Uh,
group
uh,
and the
uh,
dissolution of it.
I just want to point out that there's only one Lord of the Flies, and that's Jeff Goldblum. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, but in this case, we're just using the term. That's a given. I understand.
I knew it was going to happen sometime, and I'm like, it's just a matter of time. All right, and time. There's the Jeff Goldblum reference,
Yes, I
Yeah,
had to
it-
do that.
One fly
which I am
to
not mad
hold
about.
them all.
Yeah.
One fly to. Oh, sorry.
Being a room full of Cronenberg junkies and the amount of genre work that Jeff Goldblum has done over the years, yeah, that was bound to happen. By the way, fun note, I mentioned it, I think, in the Buckaroo Banzai thing, but imagine this, if you will. Jeff Goldblum and Peter Weller had a two-piece jazz group where Goldblum was on piano and Peter Weller was on trumpet. So imagine you could hire them out to play your living room during like the early 80s.
Interesting.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
What a dream.
Yep.
I'm just saying, I would happily just sit there and like soak that in left, right, and sideways. we're a book report if they allowed us to drink this in high school.
Yes.
Well, if they allowed us to drink this in class in high school.
Yeah.
For me, it would have been was I 12 or 13? I was 13 in 8th grade. We read Lord of the Flies in 8th grade. Read the book and then watched the movie with my father. Because he was a cool guy like that. He would watch scary movies with me. And movies that he thought held like great cultural significance. One of the other ones was On the Waterfront, because I wanted to know where the phrase "I could have been a contender" came from.
Too. Yeah, I love that movie.
So there is this constant struggle of trying to maintain civility and rule and order, and the just full-on embracing the wild and the dirt and the nasty. And that goes for everything. That goes for how they are treating the animals that they are hunting. Because I have to say, Jack with his knife, another big motif besides the conch, Jack is incredibly like reveling in the violence of killing this pig, because stab. It's not just trying to quick kill it. Yeah, go ahead, Den.
I'm sorry. Do you feel that there's almost like a cult-like pull toward that violence, because they're like sort of they turn it into a kill the pig, slit or throat, all that song?
Yeah, no, I've been trying to work out what that chant is. That
yes,
kill the pig, stick him good. I wrote it down actually. Which kill the pig. There we go. Like kill the pig, bash it in. Like
slit or throat.
Slit or throat. It becomes this whole chant that's repeated over and over again. And at one point, Jack is like starting his pulling away from the base camp. Like, look, we're the hunters. We're getting you meat. You need to respect me because I brought you food. You couldn't do this.
Aren't you taking notes, Dan?
Just literally, I don't know if you could see that.
It's that tears of upset.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, whoever I interrupt.
You're all right.
Sorry, this rosé is really good.
Oh, this is all gonna end.
My cup is empty at this point. Like, this is just for show. All it had in it was tea. So we have this idea from the very beginning, like the whisperings of, well, there's something out there in the jungle. It's not just wild pigs. There's something and dark and treacherous out there, which is a pretty understandable feeling when you're lost and alone in a new place with no grown-ups And in the moments when you're not, yay, no grown-ups, that you're going to be,
Okay.
yeah, no, I actually have been thinking about that every single time. Do we want to just have a moment? Like, we can just go 3, 2, 1, and everybody do Muppet arms.
Let's
Fuck
do
yeah,
it.
let's do that.
3,
3,
2, 1.
1.
So with this idea of a beast floating around in their heads, they're going about their business and doing their things. There are noises in the night. There are strange billowing things behind the rocks up on the cliffs. And Jack, leader of the hunters, is really leaning into that idea. And whether or not he actually believes that there is a beast isn't entirely clear. Although he keeps going, I take that back. I take that back because he's constantly saying, well, so what if there is a beast? If there is a beast, we shall hunt it. Again, very British.
There's definitely the sense that the
Killed
beast
something.
exists, that the beast exists only as a tool for Jack to use to control the group.
That is
Yeah.
pretty much that's a very common thing, though, especially in cult groups or as a means of control. I mean, taking a look at, Stalin was constantly saying that, there were always people infiltrating the party and doing state-like things. Cult groups are infamous for having, outsiders looking in and saying that they're a constant threat to us as an organization, as a belief system.
I have lots of deep thoughts that are not coming through because of what I drank, but
I swear I had them. There's just
they're here. They're just not
outside.
able to be verbalized.
Okay. Is it in
They
there?
just keep going.
You should try looking in there.
Yeah.
Tuesday.
So the beast is actually a pilot who has crashed and died, and his dead body is sort of laying there in the brush. I wonder if that's the pilot that was piloting the plane that they were on when they crashed.
We
Maybe.
can't actually ever see the face because it's covered up by flight gear, parachuting gear. I can't tell if he has like a full-on gas mask on, but you never actually see a face, so we don't know in what state of decay he might be in. So it could have been the pilot who was piloting the plane that crashed and stranded the boys.
It's sort of all the people who are trying to do things that are well thought out, and let's take a minute here to figure out what we're going to do. Let's keep our priorities in order. They're portrayed as not like part of the like the powerful group, and then the other people are like, no, we're going to hunt, we're going to kill, we're going to have these stupid poems that we recite, and if you're not part of that group, then you're part of the out group.
If you're not with us, you're against us.
Yes.
Kill the pig.
Kill the pig.
Slit her throat.
So
wait a minute. I didn't mean to lead you guys in the chant.
Kill the pig, kill the pig, kill the pig.
Even though we, the audience, get a pretty good, when Ralph and Jack finally do kind of come up over that horizon, we do get a very distinct look. Like it's not, super shadowy or anything like that. It's in plain view in the sunlight, but I think they see a little bit of movement and are just immediately terrified. So they turn tail and just down the cliff.
And I know John has a thought he wants to offer. I just want to mention, do you think that Jack knows flat out that there's nothing to fear there, and he knows that that's his moment to say, hey, look.
I think he's trying to legitimize himself as a leader.
Yeah.
I think he convinces himself at points. At that point, I think it looks like there is an actual little bit of terror there. Shit, I didn't even think there was anything up here. Oh my God.
Yeah. It didn't matter what it was at that point.
Yeah, no, it didn't matter what it was, because they saw something. As you say, it legitimizes his way of doing things, and kind of delegitimizes, or at the very least makes Ralph's way of doing things look bad. And he's also constantly batting back at Ralph. Oh yes, we must do what Piggy wants. We must take care of Piggy. Poor Piggy, fatty.
Kill the pig.
Oh, that's interesting that you just yelled out that, because it's the first thing I thought was they named him Piggy, and the whole movie is kill the pig.
Yes.
Over and over again. So
No,
I made that connection like right away.
The question I had actually was,
Yeah.
is that more tea or did you actually go get beer?
No, actually, wait, no. We're actually. I thought, well, we're on an island in the North Pacific. I should have something tropical. So what it is like pina colada kefir water with some white rum in it.
Oh well, hey,
it's actually not bad, and I added like a little twist of lime. It's actually not bad.
Classier than anything we're drinking.
Yeah, that's.
I'm all out of beers. Like I would have happily gone downstairs and cracked open the 50-cent chocolate stout from Trader Joe's we got the other day. It's like a 6-pack for $5.
You're drinking something too classy to do a spit take with. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Yes, no, I'm not.
Our alcohol should always be willing to take one for the team on a spit take. I'm just saying.
I'm gonna have to go back to the only place in town that I can find that carries Schlitz. Because that's very spit takeable, but it's also nice to drink, for a shitty beer.
That's a shitty beer. That's a nice balance. You got to find something shitty enough that you can do a spit take with it, but not so shitty that you don't want to drink it.
It's still easy drinking. Yeah.
So
okay, sorry.
Where I was going next was Simon seeing the Lord of the Flies in the woods, or in the jungle rather. So while all of this, the newest sighting of the beast has happened, Simon is kind of wandering around in the jungle, and he comes across the pig's head on a pike. And in the movie, at least, we have another little bit of a, I suppose, technically speaking, I think it's a motif. It's been a minute since my film studies class. But the sound of the droning of a fly.
Yes.
And it happens. I made a specific note about it in the very beginning of the film. Like it's just before we have that little itty bitty teeny spark of unhumanness start to happen. It's that single fly, and it's like, oh, that's all it takes. So Simon sees this pig's head in the wood, and now it's just covered in flies, and the camera focuses in on the tongue hanging out of the pig's mouth, and there's flies crawling in and out of it all over it. And it does, even though there is no like voiceover or anything, it definitely still has the same feel of the scene as it does in the book, where the head tells the boy, I am the Lord of the Flies, which is another name for Beelzebub.
Yep.
AKA
the devil.
So he has seen this pig's head, and he is kind of in a. What's happened?
I don't know. I just saw John look around like he just saw something being summoned.
Was it Beelzebub?
Considering our overall love of elder gods and chaos and unreality in this group, periodically checking for demons and Beelzebub around your house really only just makes sense, because I'm like,
all right, so poor little Simon, all alone, who has been a number of times a little bit the voice of reason. Just before Jack and Ralph had gone up, he said, you know what, I think perhaps maybe there is not a beast, and perhaps it's just us. But he says it so quietly and like so fearfully, and it's kind of unclear whether he's afraid to assert a position that is different from what the rest of the group is feeling, or if he is unsure himself. Go ahead.
There's a moment where Ralph has the conch, and he the rest of the group is going off and doing crazy shit, and he's at the point where Ralph says to blow, or Piggy says blow the conch, and he goes, well, if I blow the conch and they don't come back, then we won't have any power. And
yes.
There's a line in Run Like Hell, the Pink Floyd song, where the conch shell shatters, where it's about the breakdown of where that moment when you know you don't have the power anymore.
Yep.
And I think even though later on the explicit moment where they realize they don't have the power is when things go to shit. I think it's that actual moment in the movie where they realize that they're fucked.
Well, and after Simon is wandering, it's gone dark, and he's wandering back toward the camp, and Jack and the hunters have stolen fire and made this big giant bonfire, and they're cooking up meat, and they've painted themselves in all sorts of, I assume, jungle fruits, and Jack is very much lording it over Ralph, and all right, give them some food. And they're having just this big wild feast. They're jumping over the fire, jumping in the water, screaming at the top of their lungs, just like as hard as they can. And in this kind of like, I don't know what like almost a possessed ecstasy, they see movement in the jungle, and it's Simon coming back to the camp, but I'm pretty sure it's Jack that calls it out. It may or may not be his kind of second in command, Roger, or at least what I view as his second in command. But one of them, we'll say it's Jack, says, "It's the beast, get it!" And they all rush toward the jungle with their sharpened sticks and just relentlessly lay into Simon. And he screams like a little boy would, but they don't stop and they kill him.
This ties in really well with like last week's film, in that it turns about the dissolution of society, but also mob mentality. And once you get started in the middle of something, it's notoriously difficult to stop, because it turns into groupthink and group mind, where there's no real rational element to it. You're just following what the group is doing. Also, even like Piggy is joining in the midst of all of this.
The rationality of it at that point. I don't know if Piggy is joining in because he agrees with what he's saying, or if he's afraid to assert anything against the group at that point. But he actually gets to a point where he says, no, it wasn't murder. We were all kind of, like caught up in the moment, and we thought it was the beast, but it and it's the person who calls it out as murder who is not then has the target on his back, even though, when I saw the scene, maybe I need to watch it again. Not that I don't have a burning itch to do that, honestly, but there's that scene where the baddie, I don't remember his name,
Jack with the knife.
Jack says, I felt that Jack knew that was not the beast, that he knew that was this kid, and that he was sending them out to murder this kid.
But again, that also ties into elements of cult behavior and such, of if we as a group all participate in the criminal act, then everybody is now a part of that action. And
no one can condemn us because you were part of it.
And that's why they go after what's his name at the end, because he didn't go along with the group. He didn't sign on to the narrative, so he has to be a target.
Jack was kind of taking on this Charles Manson kind of leadership.
Definite there. Charles Manson vibe.
Yeah.
See, actually, the scene where Piggy and Ralph are talking the morning after Simon has been killed, I've always gotten the impression that absolutely every single one of them participated, which it's a little bit unclear, but the way that Piggy says is like, well, no, it's not that, and Ralph is just so grief stricken. Like, on the one hand, yes, he could be grief stricken because he's looking at humanity fall apart in front of him. Like, the dissonance in that alone, feeling like you still have that and watching it just crumple away from everyone around you, that's terrifying. And so he hangs his head and just cries out and openly weeps, "Oh, Piggy," because that was murder. That's what that was. I think that wasn't a mistake. That was murder.
I think that's the punchline of the movie, is when he realizes that even the guy who's been on his side this whole time is falling into the the groupthink, and or like signing on to the trap of it.
And he was the most intellectual one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, at that point, I think he is actually missing one half of his glasses, which, very in the face kind of symbolism, but good nonetheless.
Although
I love that, we shattered one lid, and then suddenly that fly sound happens a lot more often.
Yeah.
Although Piggy at the very end is the person who poses the question that the whole movie is asking is, do we want a world like, the peaceful world where everybody gets to conch and they get to speak their mind, or do we want this, the hunter, like hunter-gatherer kind of just tough guy savage?
Yeah, no,
and his question is answered. Savages. Yeah, he actually literally explains.
What is it better to be, a pack of painted savages or civilized?
Yeah, and he's answered by having a rock dropped on his head.
Yeah,
but that was quite a boulder. I don't know about rock.
I just like to throw out there that I did not like the score of this movie.
It's really a little workmanlike.
Lots of very invasive flute noises.
I would have really liked it if there was no music at all. I think it would have had more power.
I think that would have worked way better.
But we're talking 1963, I guess. We're not going to get,
Yeah, at that point, it was probably something of like don't we kind of have to have a little bit of a score?
Yeah.
Now, there were certain points where I would argue against that, like the tribal drums happening.
On occasion.
Again, it's a little on the nose, but here and there, I think it's well utilized. But I'm mostly with you on the I would kind of prefer just have no score.
It's in the Museum of Modern Art, so I mean, like Dan Carlson says he doesn't like the score, is not going to hold that weight. But I just didn't like it. I just thought, this is really taking me out of the movie.
Yeah, and at one point I thought to myself, okay, so where did they get bongos now suddenly?
I mean, there are moments when they're sitting around the fire, they're actually banging sticks on like rows of other sticks. So like they've basically made a primitive marimba. Marimba phone, xylophone. There's another something phone that I can't remember what it's called.
Oh boy. This is it's an important piece of literature, and ergo it transfers into the film. But it's about the notion of societal collapse, the idea that these kids are trying to escape a nuclear war, but the collapse of society follows along with them. And the problem I've always had with this is that it always feels as if this sort of thing, it speaks of the inevitability of the collapse of society under certain sets of circumstances. To me, though, it's always been a thing about the worst case scenario and carrying over the worst of us into a situation where in survival, you kind of need the best of us. The funny part is that literally about 2 months ago, I read an article about a group of kids from, I want to say it was New Zealand or Australia, who got trapped on an island out in the Pacific for like 3 years. And they were expecting it to be
Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, they were expecting Lord of the Flies. What they got was a bit more along the lines of Bakunin and stateless socialism. Everybody was like, okay, yeah. But I think also part of it was the fact that it must have been New Zealand, because I think the kids were Maori. And so therefore there was a different cultural element in that it becomes about, once we are all in danger, we all learn how to work together to survive. I may not like you, but you're a necessity for my survival. And that is something, this book is, the film and the book go hand in hand with talking about the worst of us and how the worst of us can drag us along. Totally get it. It's a lesson that we all need to know and understand. The reality is that oftentimes when you're trapped in a survival situation, you learn that socializing and being able to be an effective social group works and plays well with others is on the evolutionary scale. It is something you have to keep in mind. So it's one of those where I think from time to time we need to come back and revisit this piece of work. as a way to warn us about not falling prey to the worst of our own dark sides, but it's also a piece of work that I don't revisit willingly. I kind of have to be dragged into it. So thank you very much, Kat. I do
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks, Kat.
it. Yeah, thanks,
I
Kat.
enjoyed it.
Next week
Yeah.
next week we'll watch Last House on the Left just to make everybody feel better.
Better. Let's watch something uplifting. Hey, is there a good like cannibalism film? That'll be awesome. But yeah, to me, it's one of those where I think that it's a very important piece of work in terms of understanding what our darkest natures can lead us to. On the other hand, I also feel that it's one of those ones that I don't know. I haven't been trapped, and if we're all trapped on a island together, I think this would be a good group to do it with. On the other hand, if I wind up eating all of you, I apologize in advance. Sorry.
Okay.
These things happen.
Apology pre-accepted. Does that mean press play?
Yes. Press play if for no other reason. I think the story is a necessity for everybody to watch.
Okay. I would say I think it's an important movie, but I don't think it's a fun movie in any way. I really I could see where it was going, and I read the book, but like I said, it was 30 years ago or whatever. But and I've seen horror movies that kind of took on this theme, like Summer Camp Nightmare and things like that. But
Yeah.
to see it played out with like little kids, and they were killing, like the little kids getting killed and stuff like that. It was just it was a bit much to take on a Friday evening with my beer.
Can I just watch one movie where children aren't murdering each other?
Yeah.
Please?
But it is an important movie. It's in the Museum of Modern Art. It's well done. It's I think it was good to film it in black and white. It kind of gives you a little bit of detachment from what you're looking at. I think if it was in color, it'd be too much.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
I do think it's the only acting issues I had was with the guy who played Piggy. You could tell he was very non-professional, but that's kind of the idea, is bringing these non-professional children.
Yeah.
But it's a press play, but you don't need to see it. To me, I don't need to see it again.
It's something that needs to be
Once, maybe,
revisited
like,
about once every
2
decade.
decades. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. So yeah,
Just to
press
compare
play.
with what the current political situation is like.
Right. Press play,
Just
but
for,
watch.
just for a reference point.
Right. Press play, but watch Dumb and Dumber afterwards.
Yeah, have a comedy in the on deck
Do that.
circle immediately afterward.
Kat, obviously you picked it. What was your opinion?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the definitely press play. Review. I would say it's one of those movies that I wouldn't mind watching. As you say, once a decade, once every 2 decades. The last time I watched it, I was 13 years old. And I actually had a little bit of a different thought process on it now. And it could be because, I'm a Kami Pinko Quirmo tree hugger, granola munchin type of person now.
Yeah, there's that.
Not that I, wasn't the seedlings of that back in the beginning, but what I kind of took away was not the, we need to watch out for our darker impulses. What I kind of took away was you can't necessarily have one without the other. You cannot have the superego without the id. You cannot have the id without the superego. Eventually, they will burn themselves out. One of them will not meet the needs of the other, and it's going to eventually collapse. If the naval officer had not shown up, and Jack and the Hunters had succeeded in killing Ralph, I think it would have continued on. At some point, someone new is going to be the enemy, and they've got to be killed, and pretty soon it would be dwindling down to just Jack and Roger.
The conch shell is very important to keep the balance, basically.
Right.
Yeah, and like Piggy has that line, like you said, Dan. What is it better to be? A pack of wild painted savages, or properly civilized? Well, if you're properly civilized, you're ignoring all of these urges and needs that humans have that they need to get out in some kind of fashion. Like I think it's foolish to just tamp them down, ignore them, or condemn them and say kind of the whole like toxic masculinity. You're toxic, so stop it, with nothing else to give on the other end of that. But that's how I was kind of looking at it this time. One over the other is not necessarily the answer. And I'm typically the sort of person who says, you have to do what you need to survive. Survival is not living. In order to live, there are other things that you need to attend to, that you need to satisfy within yourself and within those around you, in order to feel kind of generally at peace and be able to move forward in the world.
First of all, I say press play. I liked it more than the color version. That I was actually in a Lord of the Flies situation back in high school.
That's a thing to say right 3 minutes before we stop.
Well,
I was actually in a situation just like this.
Well, no, we did this big trip called Canoe Canada, and we ended up in Canada, and I shot a kid in the eye with a paintball, and so the person who was supervising us and the kid who got shot in the eye and one of the other kids went canoeing off to go to the ranger station for 3 days, and the rest of the camp devolved into Lord of the Flies, and I ended up on a canoe out in the middle of the little whatever lake, fjord, whatever, and getting shot by everybody on the shore with paintballs, because I was the guy who shot the other kid in the eye, and it was like, the evolution of society. It was all happening around me, and it was like Lord of the Flies.